Did you know that there are secrets to fasting that most people never hear about? Today, we're going to uncover some of the hidden truths about fasting that might completely change the way you see this spiritual discipline. But here's the thing. What if I told you that some of the most powerful aspects of fasting are not even what you might think? Let me ask you, have you ever started a fast and felt like nothing happened? Maybe you were expecting a spiritual breakthrough, some kind of deep connection with God, but instead, it just felt like you were hungry and tired. Trust me, you're not alone. And there's a reason why. One of the biggest secrets about fasting is that it's not just about saying no to food, it's about saying yes to God. When Jesus spoke about fasting in the book of Matthew, he didn't say, if you fast, he said, when you fast. That tells us something important. Fasting isn't just an option, it's an expectation. But the real power of fasting doesn't come from the act itself. It comes from your heart posture. Fasting is meant to humble us, to remind us of our dependence on God. But here's the hidden gem. It's also about clearing space in your life, mentally, spiritually, and physically, so that you can hear God more clearly. You see, when you strip away the noise, distractions, and even the comfort of food, you're creating room for something deeper, a divine encounter, a heightened sensitivity to God's voice. And here's the key. Fasting is not about showing off how spiritual you are or making sure everyone knows you're doing it. It's a private conversation between you and God. That's where the real beauty lies. And when done right, it unlocks a deeper connection with Him that you may have never experienced before. So, I want you to think about this. The next time you fast, don't just think about what you're giving up. Think about what you're gaining. Approach it with a heart ready to receive, a heart open to transformation. And I promise, those secrets, the ones no one ever told you about, will start to reveal themselves in ways you never imagined. Another incredible aspect of fasting is how it can bring you closer to God in ways you never thought possible. When you fast, you're not just denying yourself food, you're intensifying your prayers. Imagine it like turning the volume up on your spiritual life. When Daniel in the Bible was desperate to seek God, he didn't just pray, he fasted. And by combining his prayers with fasting, he tapped into a deeper level of connection with God. His focus, his urgency, his desire to hear from the Lord, all of that was magnified through the act of fasting. Think of it this way, prayer is like a lifeline to God, but when you add fasting, it's like you're strengthening that lifeline. It becomes more powerful, more direct, and suddenly, the distractions that once felt so overwhelming start to fade into the background. Your heart becomes more in tune with His, and you start to notice that your prayers carry more weight, more passion, and more clarity. And here's something else to remember. Fasting doesn't just amplify your prayers, it humbles your soul. When you're fasting, you're physically weaker, and that weakness makes you rely on God more. It's like saying, God, I'm laying it all down. I'm taking my hands off the wheel. I want you to take over. And it's in that place of surrender, when you're fully depending on Him, that you'll find some of the most profound spiritual breakthroughs. So, if you're facing a big decision, if you're longing for direction, or if you simply want to draw closer to God, remember that fasting paired with prayer can be a powerful catalyst. You're not just skipping a meal, you're making room for the divine to step into your situation, to work in your heart, and to reveal Himself in ways that could transform your life. But here's where it gets even more powerful. Fasting isn't just about your own spiritual growth. It's also about breaking chains and tearing down strongholds in your life and the lives of those around you. Isaiah 58 talks about how fasting can loose the chains of injustice and untie the cords of the yoke. In other words, it's a spiritual tool that can bring freedom and breakthrough from things that have been holding you back for years. And you see this echoed in the New Testament as well. When Jesus' disciples couldn't cast out a particularly stubborn demon, He told them that this kind can come out only by prayer and fasting. That's right, fasting intensifies your spiritual authority. It's like shining a floodlight on the darkness. And suddenly, things that seemed impossible to overcome start to fall away. Strongholds that have kept you bound. Whether it's addiction, fear, anger, or oppression, they lose their grip when fasting is involved. Think of fasting like a spiritual weapon. It's not about your strength or willpower. It's about God stepping in and fighting battles on your behalf. And when you're fasting, you're positioning yourself to partner with God in those battles, allowing His power to work through you in ways that can shatter chains and bring real freedom. But remember, fasting isn't magic. It's not just about abstaining from food and expecting miracles. It's about humbling yourself, seeking God's face, and letting His power move in your life. When you fast with the right heart, are not just to get something from God, but to know Him more deeply and fight spiritual battles through His strength. That's when you start to see mountains move and breakthroughs happen that you never thought possible. And here's something truly beautiful about fasting. It helps you to focus and reorient your heart toward God. When you fast, you're stripping away distractions and focusing on what truly matters. But more than that, fasting helps you recognize the things you've been relying on instead of God, bringing to light those hidden dependencies. You know, in today's world, it's so easy to lean on comfort, food, entertainment, or even relationships to fill the gaps in our lives. But when you choose to fast, you're making a conscious decision to say, God, I want you to be my source. I want you to be the one who fills those gaps, not all these other things. It's like recalibrating your spirit, getting rid of the noise so you can hear His voice more clearly. And here's the thing. As you fast and focus on God, He starts revealing deeper truths to you. Maybe He'll show you something about your life that you've been ignoring. Or perhaps He'll give you clarity on a situation you've been struggling with for so long. It's not always what you expect, but it's always what you need. Fasting realigns your priorities. Suddenly, you realize that what you thought was so important might not be all that crucial. And what you've been overlooking, your relationship with God, your spiritual growth, becomes the most important thing. It helps you refocus on what's eternal, what's lasting, and what truly brings joy and peace into your life. So, when you fast, don't just think about the physical sacrifice. Think about the spiritual gain, how every moment of hunger is a reminder to depend on God, to seek Him, to listen for His voice, and to let Him reorder your life according to His perfect plan. And that kind of focus, that kind of spiritual realignment, can change everything. But if you really want to experience the full power of fasting, it's important to do it the right way, the biblical way. The Bible has a lot to say about how to fast, and when you follow its guidance, you set yourself up for a deeper, more genuine experience. So, what does it mean to fast biblically? First, it's all about your heart posture. Remember what Jesus said in Matthew 6. When you fast, don't go around with a gloomy face, trying to show everyone how holy you are. Fasting is between you and God. It's not a performance. It's an intimate act of worship. And it's not just about denying yourself food. It's about seeking God wholeheartedly. The Bible calls for a fast that includes prayer, humility, and a focus on helping others. In Isaiah 58, God tells His people that a true fast is about more than just giving up food. It's about loosening the chains of injustice, setting the oppressed free, and sharing your food with the hungry. It's not just about the physical sacrifice. It's about a heart that's truly aligned with God's love and compassion. And here's another key point. Don't complicate it. Sometimes we can turn fasting into a list of rules and rituals, making it all about regulations and doing it right. But the simplicity of a biblical fast is powerful. It's about humbling yourself, seeking God's presence, and letting Him do the work in your heart. It's not about what you're giving up, but about what you're opening yourself up to receive more of God's love, more of His grace, more of His presence. So, as you prepare to fast, keep it biblical. Keep it simple. Let it be about knowing God more deeply and letting His word guide you through the process. And when you fast with that heart, a heart truly set on Him, you'll find that He meets you right where you are, ready to transform and renew you in ways you never imagined. And here's something to watch out for: the way fasting can affect your emotions. It's easy to become irritable, frustrated, or even downright angry when you're fasting, especially if you're doing it for a longer period. Hunger has a way of bringing up all the emotions that are usually buried under the surface. And if you're not careful, you can lose sight of the whole purpose of your fast. But here's the truth. Fasting is not meant to make you miserable. It's meant to draw you closer to God and bring you peace. So if you find yourself constantly on edge, easily angered or impatient while fasting, it might be a sign that something deeper is going on. Maybe it's an unresolved issue, a hidden hurt, or just a part of your character that God wants to work on. Fasting has a way of revealing these things, not to shame you, but to heal and refine you. So, how do you handle those emotions when they surface? You bring them to God. In moments of frustration, instead of focusing on what you're missing out on, whether it's food, comfort, or your normal routine, use that moment to lean into God's presence. It's okay to feel weak, tired, or even cranky. Just don't let those emotions define your fast. Let them drive you deeper into prayer, deeper into reflection, deeper into God's grace. And remember, keeping a loving, patient attitude during your fast is crucial. It's a reflection of what God is doing in your heart. So the next time you catch yourself feeling irritable or ready to snap, pause and remind yourself why you're fasting in the first place. Let those moments be an invitation to lean into God's strength, to practice love, and to grow in patience and kindness. Because at the end of the day, fasting is about more than denying your body food. It's about feeding your spirit with the fruit of God's character. And when you learn to fast with that kind of heart, every hunger pang becomes a reminder of the grace and love that God is cultivating within you. And here's something that's so important to understand. Fasting is not a quick fix for ongoing sin or struggles. Sometimes it's tempting to think, if I just fast for a couple of days, all my problems will go away. But fasting isn't a magic button you press to make everything in your life better overnight. The real power of fasting comes when it's part of a long-term spiritual journey, a commitment to growing closer to God, making lasting changes, and confronting those deeper issues in your heart. It's not meant to be a band-aid for something you don't want to deal with. It's meant to be a reset, a fresh start in your relationship with God that helps you break free from patterns that are holding you back. Think of fasting like a spark. It can ignite a fire of change and transformation, but it's up to you to keep that fire going. If you're fasting to break a bad habit, to overcome a temptation, or to seek God's guidance in a specific area, remember that fasting is just the beginning. After your fast, the real work starts, the daily commitment to walking in that new direction, to living out what God showed you during your time of fasting, and to leaning on Him every day for strength. So, don't just use fasting as a spiritual detox without addressing the root issues in your life. Let it be a time of deep reflection, where you ask God to reveal what needs to change, what needs to grow, and what needs to be left behind. And then, as you end your fast, take those lessons and let them fuel a long-term transformation in your life, not just for a moment, but for a lifetime of living closer to God and walking in His freedom. Because at its core, fasting is not just about doing something spiritual for a short period. It's about embracing a change in your heart that leads to lasting freedom, deeper joy, and a closer walk with God that goes far beyond the days you spend without food. Now, here's something that often gets overlooked: taking care of your physical health while you fast. It's so easy to get caught up in the spiritual side of fasting that we forget God cares about our bodies too. And when you're not wise about how you fast, it can actually do more harm than good. Fasting doesn't mean pushing your body to its limits without care. Yes, you're abstaining from food, but your body still needs water and rest. You see, when you fast, your body naturally goes through a detox process. It's working hard to cleanse itself and get rid of toxins, and that means you need to support it by drinking water, getting enough sleep, and keeping clean. It's about finding that balance. You're giving your body a break from food, but you're not neglecting its basic needs. And if you have any medical conditions, don't ignore them. There's wisdom in consulting with a doctor before you begin any kind of extended fast. The goal isn't to harm your body, but to honor God with a healthy approach to fasting. And even for those who are healthy, it's important to recognize the signs that your body is reaching its limits. Pushing yourself too far in the name of spiritual strength can actually be counterproductive and could make you sick, preventing you from continuing your fast or fully reaping its spiritual benefits. Your body is a temple, a gift from God, and it's your responsibility to care for it. Fasting is a powerful spiritual practice, but it should never become a dangerous endeavor. Remember, the heart of fasting is about humbling yourself before God, not trying to prove your spiritual strength by going without food for as long as possible. So, as you fast, be mindful of how your body feels and take care of yourself. Drink water, take breaks, and don't be afraid to end your fast if you feel that your health is at risk. A well-managed fast is one that honors both God and the body He's given you, allowing you to seek Him with a clear mind and a healthy body. And let's not forget, it's crucial to fast in a biblical way, keeping your practice aligned with God's intentions, not man-made rules or extremes. In Isaiah 58, God warns against fasting that He never commanded, fasting that's all about ritual or show, rather than true humility and seeking Him. The Bible gives us clear guidance on how to fast, and it's important to stick to that. For instance, fasting is about drawing closer to God, not punishing yourself. There's no place for self-harm, extreme deprivation, or other harmful acts that some might think will prove their devotion. True fasting isn't about trying to manipulate God with extreme measures or proving how holy you are by going to the most radical lengths. It's about a sincere heart turning to God in humility and reverence. And it's not about copying rituals from other religions or adding practices that are not in line with the Bible. Things like chanting, self-isolation to an unhealthy extent, or specific poses or ceremonies that come from non-Christian traditions can distract you from the true purpose of your fast. Remember, the focus is on spiritual growth, prayer, and drawing near to God, not adding unnecessary complications or rigid rules that can weigh down the experience. Biblical fasting is simple, powerful, and life-changing when done right. Keep it about connecting with God, aligning with His will, and growing in your faith. Let your fast be marked by prayer, humility, and devotion, not by man-made regulations or practices that take the focus off of God and onto yourself or empty traditions. So, when you fast, make sure it's a practice that's rooted in God's Word. Keep it honest, keep it pure, and let it be a time where you can strip away everything else and simply be in the presence of God with no barriers, no pretenses, and no unnecessary burdens. That's where the power of fasting truly lies. And finally, one of the most important parts of fasting is how you end it. After a long period of fasting, it can be so tempting to immediately dive into a big meal and indulge in all the foods you've been dreaming about. But here's the thing, breaking a fast requires as much wisdom as starting one. Your body, after a fast, is in a delicate state. It's not used to heavy or rich foods, and if you overload it all at once, you can end up feeling sick, overwhelmed, or even undo some of the benefits of the fast. Think of it like waking up from a deep sleep. You wouldn't go straight from rest to sprinting a marathon. In the same way, your body needs a gentle transition back to regular eating. So how do you do it? Start slow. Simple foods like broth, fresh fruits, vegetables, and plenty of water will help your body gradually adjust. And chew your food well. Take your time and listen to how your body is responding. Avoid heavy, greasy, or overly processed foods right away, and let your digestive system ease back into its normal rhythm. Your body will thank you, and you'll be able to savor the return to regular meals without feeling overwhelmed. It's not just about the physical, though. The way you end your fast can be a spiritual experience too. Use that moment to thank God for the journey, to reflect on what you learned, and to carry the insights and closeness with Him back into your everyday life. Let breaking your fast be a continuation of your time with God, a moment of gratitude, and a bridge from your fast back into regular life with a renewed spirit. So remember, ending your fast is just as much a part of the process as the fast itself. Be mindful, be thankful, and let that transition be a time to celebrate what God has done in you and through you during your time of fasting. It's not just the fast that's powerful, it's how you carry that change forward, making every meal, every prayer, and every moment that follows part of the journey that God is leading you on.